mega. The one-stop shopping Dominica, nigga. You could be shopping and having fun with your daughter or with your son. We cater to everyone. What a happy place. Oh, JP mega. The one-stop shopping Dominica, nigga. You could be shopping and having fun. Bring papa and mama along. We cater to everyone. What a happy place. Oh, what a happy place. Purchase 6 or more of any item and you automatically qualify for discounts. Check us out at the Mega Store in Funkole where there's lots of parking. On Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. On Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. JP Mega, the best family shopping experience.
I woke up this morning feeling real stink. I had intentions to call in sick, but I end up in Jolly's Pharmacy. Great and down King Street, Jolly's fix up my immune system. Got me feeling fit and strong. Now I'm ready to work and take on any mission. If you see me walking, Jolly's Pharmacy is number one. Jolly's walking. We cater for everyone. Jolly's walking. Boost up the immune system. Jolly's walking. Yeah. Yo, Dominic is the white father box. Whenever I'm in town and I'm feeling down, I head to Jolly's Pharmacy. They boost me up real quick. Jolly's Pharmacy, leading the way in healthcare.
Who say health cannot have vibes? Well, Jolly's Pharmacy is proving you otherwise. With Health Vibes, every Wednesday morning on Q95 from 10 a.m. to 11:30. Health Vibes, education, information, and a bit of humor. And not forgetting lots of vibes. Hosted by Carlton Langdo, with co-hosts Jacinta Fagan Defo and Trudy Kristen. Jolly's Pharmacy is bringing health and vibes together every Wednesday, so be sure to tune in. Health Vibes every Wednesday on Q95 from 10 a.m. to 11:30. Jolly's Pharmacy, leading the way in healthcare.
And we are back. Of course, this is Jolly's Health Vibes, and we are going to bring to you this morning something that maybe, has been popping up very recently in people's minds because of some unfortunate incidents that have occurred recently. But we're going to be talking this morning about safety whilst in the water and preventing accidents, we would say, whilst engaging in water activities or, while swimming, if you can swim, that is. So joining me this morning to kind of give us some input on this topic is Shamini. Well, Shamini, I will make you introduce yourself, but Shamini Walsh, DP, or people know her as Lily, and she is a teacher, but a swim instructor, and that is the capacity that she will be with us she'll be with us this morning. So Shamini, good morning to you, and welcome to Health Vibes.
Good morning, Trudy, and good morning to all the listeners in Dominica, to Q95 Radio here and abroad. Good morning.
Yes, so people who maybe follow my other show that I do, which is The Spill, have seen that Shamini and I have done an interview together before, but this time we have a different topic. We're talking about water and safety when it comes to being in water and being around water. So, Shamini, tell me a bit about your background in terms of being a swim instructor.
Okay, yes. I've been a swim instructor for at least more than 25 years.
Wow.
I was a national swimmer for Dominica in my teens. And I've been with the Marlin Swim Club. I've been with Dolphin Swimming Academy. And right now I am the co-owner of Swim for Life Academy. So that's a swim club we have. We operate out of Anchorage Hotel. We've been on a short hiatus, but we're looking to be back hopefully this Saturday. So I've been in swimming for a pretty long time.
Wow, 25 years.
Yeah.
So Shamini and I are past classmates.
Yes.
And when she says 25 years, I'm saying to myself, oh my God, we're getting old. We're getting old. So Swim for Life Academy, you said.
Yeah.
So is that you teach swimming to what, all ages or?
We have a learn to swim program, and we take our students from the ages of 4 to about 17.
Okay.
But we do have instructors who we do private adult classes, so we
Mhm.
definitely not forgetting about the adults. But our aim is to hopefully have a swimming group, a competitive swimming group in Dominica,
Mhm.
because we've been for a while. Well, we don't. Number one, we do not have a proper swim pool in Dominica
Right.
to conduct classes. So we're just trying our best in the meantime with what we have, and we're just trying to develop a swim team, and hopefully you can hear more about swimming in the coming years.
Mhm. So lack of a proper swimming facility, but people always say this is an island.
Yeah.
We are surrounded by water, so the opportunity to be in water, the opportunity is definitely there. Do you feel it is easier or harder to teach or to learn to swim in a controlled environment like a pool as compared to the sea?
Well, I would say the pool is a bit easier, or
Okay.
much easier, because I've taught people to swim in the sea, and we've taught in the pool.
Mhm.
In the sea, you have to mitigate against the weather. You have waves. You have debris in the water.
Mhm.
It's a lot. I got stung by jellyfish. We've had students who had gotten cut on glass bottles. So
Mhm.
the sea, I mean, it definitely has its benefits, but in terms of training persons to swim competitively,
Mhm.
then the pool definitely is the go-to. You get to practice their starts, their
Mhm.
turns, dives, and so on in a pool, and you don't have that luxury in the sea.
Okay.
Yeah.
I, as an adult, decided to try to learn to swim very recent, like up in the past few years.
I remember you contacted me.
Yes, and I did it in the sea. My swim instructor, her name is Donna, and we had classes in the sea. So what you mentioned about the weather and so on, that was definitely a factor. But I now find it easier. I still am not a swimmer. I can now survive.
Can do something.
I can survive. But I seem to find it easier to remain buoyant or floating in the sea than in the pool. Like in the pool, I'm less comfortable. So what is that?
Definitely. What I spoke about before was competitive swimming,
Mhm.
but in terms of your comfort level, the sea definitely provides more buoyancy, because
Mhm.
the salt water is more buoyant than fresh water. So you
Mhm.
have persons who feel like they can swim because they see and they
Mhm.
can float better, and then they go into the pool and they try the same things that they did in the sea, and they realize they're having some difficulty. So definitely
Mhm.
in the sea, some persons may feel like they are more comfortable because the buoyancy, there's a lot more buoyancy in salt water than fresh water. So that's probably
That's the
why you
thing.
feel that way. Yes.
Okay. And so we're talking today. We're going to get into the safety aspect. But before even that, what is the importance you would say of having that skill of being able to swim? And somebody mentioned to me just recently that for Caribbean people or island people, swimming doesn't even seem to be so much of a big priority as people in
Surprising.
developed countries that are not surrounded by water. So what is your take on the importance of having that particular skill?
Okay. Let me first say, you'd be surprised in number of persons who we live on an island. We boast 365 rivers. We have a
Mhm.
lot of coastal villages, but a lot of persons are unable to swim.
Yes.
But swimming is actually the only sport that will save your life.
Mm.
You can walk across a football field and not know anything about football, and you'll be okay. You can walk across a football field. You can walk across a stage, you don't know how to ballet or dance, and you're fine.
Mhm.
But you go in water and you don't know how to swim, you actually can put yourself in danger, and you're at risk for drowning. So
Right.
swimming is a life skill. We call it a life skill because it's a skill you need to know for life. If you never learn how to drive, you can still, you're okay. If you never learn, some of the other things that we figure are so important, you can be okay. But learning to swim is very important.
Mhm.
It's a life skill. You need it. And as I just said, it's the only sport that can save your life.
Right. And I think that is becoming so much more relevant because we have had a number of drownings in Dominica in the recent past. I mean, we've heard of drownings in the ocean or in a pool as well, and so this life saving aspect of that skill, I think maybe is coming to light a lot recently.
Definitely.
Yeah, and in terms of it being a life saving skill, another thing I wanted to ask you about is the health benefits or the health aspect of it. Because I will reveal, when I decided to learn to swim, it was because I had been told over and over for exercise.
Yeah.
That is what I should do.
It's very good.
So yeah, so let's talk about that for a while. What are the benefits of swimming to health?
Okay, and just before I go into this, I'm also the secretary of the Dominica Amateur Swimming Association, and on behalf of this association, we want to offer our condolences to the family who just lost the young one to that accident in the water. Swimming is a very healthy sport for fitness, for flexibility. It's a full body workout. Swimming, it helps you with heart function, with lung function. It helps develop your muscles. It helps with strength, stamina, as I mentioned, flexibility. Also, it's been known to improve balance and coordination, because just to do the strokes, you have to be coordinated. And overall, it's a very healthy sport. It's a full body workout. And another important thing is that swimming is also ideal for persons who have, let's say, knee issues, back issues, because that water provides that cushioning for you. You everybody know you're lighter in the water. So while you might be doing some jumping jacks, you may hurt your back, you may hurt your knee. Swimming, you don't have that issue. So it's easy on the joints, it's easy on your bones. So even persons who are more the elderly type, they can take part in swimming exercises, water aerobics, and so on. Swimming is definitely one of the top spots in terms of health and fitness.
And what you mentioned with the joints, that is the exact issue that I was faced with, having had a hip surgery at age 11, I think I was, and having, limited, I don't want to say limited mobility, but issues with that joint, the hip joints.
Yeah.
And then over the course of life with the ankle joints as well. Those high impact exercises are definitely problematic when you are suffering from joint issues or joint pain. So swimming, has always been recommended to me as the way to exercise.
It is. And once you develop the skills and you can do some of the strokes, even if it's the front crawl or the freestyle, which is the stroke where you bring your hands to the front and you swim, you see most people doing, even though that's the stroke that you can do. But definitely swimming will provide that for you, reduce the impact of these other sports where you'd have to, when you hit the ground, your body now has to deal with cushioning you from the shock. Then the water prevents all of that.
Yeah, the water like cushions that impact on the joints. Yes. And I know too, Shamini, in I would say other countries, I have seen a lot of engagement of older people in water aerobics, as you mentioned. I remember going once to the United States where my grandmother lives and has been there for a while, and she was in a water aerobics class, and it was to see all these 70 plus, 80 plus, 90-year-olds in the water doing their little workout.
Definitely.
And that is something I always thought of. Why can't we have this here?
It's something we've been looking into, honestly. I remember a few years back, it's something I was researching on and really looking into, and it's something we can still look into. As I've mentioned, we have had issues with venue. Even when, remember, you were asking me about learning to swim, just finding a place for us to practice was an issue. But definitely it's something we can look into, water aerobics, because at any age, you need to remain healthy, you need to remain fit. And for persons also who have weight issues and it's more difficult for them to do some of these other exercises, the water is the place for you. You're on your back, you're floating, and you feel like the water is just holding you up. So definitely it's the spot, it's the go-to spot for that.
Okay. And are there any, let's say, prevent like things that would prevent someone from maybe utilizing swimming as a form of exercise? Is there any condition maybe that you would advise, okay, if this is what you have, you should maybe not choose swimming as your form of exercise?
I think with anybody looking to start a new sport or to exercise, definitely you need to always check with your health professional and find out, if it is safe for you. I cannot speak so much on any particular health condition, but I can say, for example, if you have issues with your lungs, because it's important, you have to hold your breath under that water. So if you have issues with your heart and your doctor suggests that maybe this might be, but with swimming, the good thing is that, I mean, it doesn't have to be a fast-paced thing. You can do light swimming. It doesn't, somebody has a heart condition, but as I said, just check with your health professional and see what is best for you based on the condition that you may have.
Okay. Yeah, that is definitely good advice. As you mentioned, lungs and lung issues. I know people say the word we use is lalin, like so some people have plenty lalin and they can hold their breath for a long time underwater. I feel like I have a particular difficulty with that, which is why I think I have been so afraid of learning to swim or trying to swim all my life. Like I feel once water is in my face, I cannot breathe and the panic sets in. And so, I have always been kind of dissuaded from trying to swim because of that fear. Is that something that you experience when you teach it, when you're teaching people?
Definitely. One of the main things we have, and it's difficult because to swim, your face has to go in that water. Number one, if you're swimming, like I see young persons who have not had any formal swimming training. I see them swim and their head is out of the water and they're doing the freestyle or the front crawl and they're swimming. But if you put your head in that water, number one, the head is very heavy. You put that head in that water, it improves your posture, it improves your balance, and you move faster in the water. We have students who are afraid to put their faces in the water, and because of that, it takes us a longer time to really start working with them. So we have had to help children or students to overcome their fear of putting their faces in the water, explain to them what you do when you put your face in the water, that you blow out. So we have children who come in, and because they had some traumatic experience from putting their faces in, maybe they pulled water in and water went in their nose, and that feeling you get up in your head after that water goes in your nose or whatever it may be. So now we have to try and get them through that process to be comfortable putting their faces in the water. But you did mention about the lungs. Swimming improves lung capacity.
Okay.
But you have to just practice. It's just practice. You get more comfortable. You put your face in the water for a few seconds. You get comfortable. You do that for a longer time, and then you try a little more. But we also want to warn against that. So persons who are practicing having like lalin competition. I wouldn't lie, I'm from Newtown. So, I mean, we go in this year and we would do that. But it's important, even when you're doing that, you want to win. Be careful that when your lungs say, hey, it's time to come up for air,
that you
come
do
up for air.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's something called shallow water blackout, and that could be from persons as well who are doing these competitions, holding their breath and seeing how long they can hold their breath, and then get to the point where they have held their breath for too long. So it can be dangerous.
Okay. Yeah, so you hear that? I know there are people listening who maybe have who have tried that type of competition. I remember in younger days, for sure, that was a thing.
Nothing happened to me.
Yes, let's see how long you can hold your breath underwater.
I did
it. I know I would never take part because I would lose. So
I did it.
and even now, I still retain that fear, and it's sad actually that I still have that fear of water in my face. So even in the learning to swim thing, I have resorted now to when I am by myself or in the water now, since the swimming classes have passed, only doing backstroke.
Oh no!
Just so that my face
what is it?
out of the water.
Some for some children it's like, or for some persons it's that they don't like the feel of the water on their face, so even when they're washing their hair they just don't
Same.
like water in their face.
Same.
Okay. For others, so there are different reasons, so based on the reasons that the person has, then we work with them accordingly. But to teach anybody to swim, you have to have a lot of patience. A lot of patience.
I know.
And adults are more difficult to teach than children are. I will tell you that for sure.
Yes. I think I was a difficult student because of all that fear, and of course, as a grown person,
You know,
trying to
they
do
just-
trying to do something. It was definitely difficult. Even, I mean, I could give so many stories about the swimming classes, but I won't. Shamini, let's talk a little bit now about, of course, it's summertime. And, you know, a lot of us are going to be going to the beach more frequently. A lot of children too, you know, trying to engage in Dominica has so many opportunities for engaging in water activities. I notice now people are setting up more water related events.
Yeah.
We're not even going to touch on the
Tropicini.
on Tropicini, but like, you know, people are starting to do more things on the beach. Like, you know, I'm seeing some water sports areas like in Miro,
Yeah,
like
the
Castle,
recreational,
yes,
like,
the
yeah.
recreational, right. I wanted to get from you, what are some do's and don'ts of us going to the beach, or maybe going to a river, because the rivers too are popular, especially it's very hot now.
Definitely.
So rivers are popular. Of course, we have all these nice natural pools like Emerald Pool and all these places that, you know, people will be visiting a lot during the summer months for sure. What are some do's and don'ts of us going to just recreate in water?
Okay, so definitely you need to know what your capabilities are as it relates to your swimming abilities. So if you know you cannot swim, and well, I should put it out there. Please, everyone, if you cannot swim, if you have children who cannot swim, learn to swim. Okay, it's very, very important. As I said before, swimming is a life skill. It is important to learn to swim. It's not something that you say, oh, maybe I should, or whatever it is. No, it is important. Learn to swim. However, if you cannot swim, it doesn't mean you cannot enjoy the water because you cannot swim. A lot of people still enjoy the water. So you can get flotation devices. So if you have children, you have little armbands for them. We have you have kickboards. You can, that's where they hold it. They hold the top of the board. It's a flotation board, and they use it to kick. You have noodles. I think Do It Center may have some of those. These long flotation looks like a spaghetti.
Yes, I've seen those
noodles. But even with these, it is important to supervise. Important, very important. Even when you think you know your children can swim, oh my child can swim, man. No, but still always supervise. If you're going to the beach, you're going to the pool, pay attention to any signs that they have put up, any warnings. Different pools have different depths. So they might tell you no diving, because actually you should not dive in any body of water that is less than 9 feet. So the minimum for diving should be 9 feet head, and that's head first dives. Because anything less than that, you can end up getting a head injury. And that's why it's also important before you enter any body of water that you know the depth of the water. If you do not know the depth of the water, you have to be very, very careful. You ask, okay, if you're a good swimmer and you figure you want to go ahead and try first, and then but test it first before you just go in. Like anything, you want to know what it is I'm getting myself into. Also, it's important to follow all safety rules, as I just said, any warnings that they may have, and any weather information.
Yes.
So if there's a storm coming or anything like that, then you may definitely want to pay attention to that. Persons figure, oh, it's a big wave, it's a hurricane, in the water.
For the thrill,
Yes, but people have lost their lives tampering, I would say, with nature, and just figure it's fun. It's fun until you get caught in a rip current or something, and then you don't know what to do. And even persons who figure that they're experienced swimmers, they sometimes underestimate their skill, underestimate the water, underestimate the conditions. So that's why it's very important, if you're going to swim, always have a swim buddy with you.
Uh-huh.
Take someone with you, let someone know where you're going, but important to have a swim buddy because you may get into some situation, some sort of distress. It's important to have someone there for help, even though they cannot come and help you, but they can call for help. Also, exercise. Even before you enter the water, it's good to just do a little bit of we call it warm-up exercises. So you warm your body up, get the muscles ready for swimming. Because if you do not do that, it doesn't happen all the time, but you can get a cramp. And even experienced swimmers have drowned because they got a cramp and the muscles have seized basically on them and they were unable to swim.
Right.
So you can be a swimmer and you can get a cramp because you didn't warm your muscles up before you entered in the water. So it's important to do warm-up exercises before you enter into the water.
Okay. So that's some good advice
Yeah.
though, because you don't often see people, doing that. Sometimes people just arrive at the beach or wherever and they just go straight in. No warm up. What about, as I mentioned, recreational, purposes that we're going to this water? You're at a picnic and a lot of people talk about eating and not going in the water. What's the deal with that?
So apparently, from my research, because that's something we've always been told, you wait at least
you've
30 to
heard that
60
all
minutes.
your
Yeah,
life.
we've been told that, and it is a very heavy meal, probably even 2 hours before you swim. But from my research on that recently, the science is saying that there's no science to prove that.
So that
And that this myth, they say, may have come about in around 1908 when there was a Boy Scout book released on water safety, and that was one of the things that was put in there. And since then, that is just the thing that people have gone with. But they're saying that there's been no evidence of persons drowning because their stomach was full. My take on that, though, and people, and you know it, you eat and you go in the water and you feel uncomfortable. You cannot swim the way you usually would be able to swim if your tummy had been a little lighter. So I think I would say go according to how you feel. If it's a light snack, you feel okay, you can swim. If it's something very heavy, you feel uncomfortable, I think it's best to wait until you feel comfortable enough to go into the water. So that is that. I don't want to go against. I'm a science teacher. I don't want to go against the science because the science is saying that there's no science to prove that you should not go in the water after you eat. But I, as someone who actually swims and who knows that if I eat a heavy meal, I might feel a bit uncomfortable and would not be able to undertake the kind of swimming I would usually do if my tummy had been a bit lighter.
Right. So you might be a bit heavy, you know, you might feel, but I think, and I have seen that too, that you're speaking about, that there's no, evidence of, not being able to go into water or swim if you have just eaten. But it's so bad that sometimes people, in terms of that particular myth, that sometimes people will say, if you eat, you cannot even go in. Like, meaning just if you just in the water and you're just there, chilling, you're not really trying to swim or anything, you just, people will say, no, you're not supposed to go in. So it's something that some people hold very dear.
You can go in because you might just want to sit on the shore and let the waves hit you. But I will tell you from our experience, we have had students who come to class, they've just had a big breakfast, and now they're doing some real rigorous workouts, and then they vomit in the pool. So it does show that you definitely need to give your body some time to, at least digest that food before you do any rigorous, I would say, or vigorous training. So some light swimming might be okay, but anything that is too much on your body, then maybe give yourself some time to digest that food.
Okay. Let me just give the numbers to our listeners in case you want to call and ask a question or engage with Shamini. She's a swim instructor and she's been telling us all about the safety measures that we should take when we are engaging in any water activities and the importance of swimming. Our numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, and 616-4257. If you are calling from overseas, the number is 305-432-9624. Yes. So Uh-huh.
I want to add something as well, because you did mention it's summertime, and something else we need to remember is that persons who having parties and picnics and so on,
Mhm.
and you consume alcohol and then you go in the
Ah.
water. We know alcohol generally impairs your ability to function as you would if you take too much alcohol. So
Mhm.
imagine being in the water and you're drunk.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
understand? So definitely, I think persons should be very careful about that. And for anybody who is going to use a pool and so on for the summer, just remind the children especially that they should not run near the pool. It can be slippery, and besides drowning, you can get a fall. You can
Mhm.
break an arm, you can break a leg, you can hurt your head. So it's
Mhm.
not just about things that can happen in the pool or in the sea, but things that can happen around if
Right.
they're not careful. And
Right.
just for the parents who may have little ones, if you do have a pool, we want to definitely encourage you to lock off or put some sort of barrier around the pool once it is not swim time.
Okay.
And there's a caution about leaving toys near the pool
Near the
as
pool.
well.
Okay, I see we have a caller. Let's take this call. Caller, good morning.
Good morning. It's indeed a pleasure to be listening this morning. I hardly have the time to do so, but this morning, and I find it really interesting. But with the myth, where they say if your stomach is full, I'm wondering if it's that they really said, because it's like I'm a person, I can't swim and I'm very, very afraid of even trying to swim. Is it the myth that if you belch or burp under the water, that is the myth what that can cause you to drown, or not, it's not like your stomach being filled or half filled? Um, Secondly, I really, really believe that we have so much skills in young children that are willing to swim and are able to swim. And we need a facility where children or adults can go. I really believe that is something that we should do. And as a mother, I suffer with a phobia when it comes to the water, for even rivers. And I've realized every time I bring my children to the sea, if I just see a little wave, I shout at them and I do those things. So now I don't take them to the beach. If they go with their sister, and it don't worry me. But the minute I'm there, I panic a lot. What advice can you give to people like me? Thank you very much.
That's
You're
a good
welcome.
that's a good one. Thank you, caller. Yes. So Shamini, first the belching or burping underwater, and any particular risk for that, and what advice would you give that mother?
I'm not sure about the belching or the burping, but what we're saying that the myth is that eating before going into the pool does not necessarily cause anybody to drown, because
Mhm.
we go by statistics, and they say statistically there has not been any evidence really to support that. But if somebody burps underwater, I mean, as long as their mouth is, well, I mean, you burp, your mouth opens a little bit, you get some air out. But besides burping, anytime your face is in the water and you open your mouth, there's a risk of water going in your mouth. So I mean, definitely want to guard against that. I don't know if it has anything per se to do with the myth and to do with eating.
Mm-mm. Yeah. And the caller also mentioned, she has a phobia, so
Yeah.
she shouts at the she shouts at the
Yeah.
children when they approach the water. What is your advice for her?
Yes, when she said that, she just brought my memory back. We have a lot of, well, for example, if our swim academy parents
Mhm.
are allowed to stay for the whole class and supervise with us. In fact, we appreciate that, because you can never have too much supervision when people are in the water. So we allow that. But I will tell you, we have instances where we have some parents who, just like the caller said, they have their phobias and they panic, and you know what they do, they end up transferring that to the
Fear to the child,
children.
yeah.
So when you have a child who, the children, they come in the water, and unless they had some sort of traumatic experience, they are ready, they are fearless in the water, and
Mhm.
it's a pleasure to teach them to swim. But when you have parents who have phobias and they pass these on to the children, with the panic, so the children know, they think that water is the enemy and they're scared of water. But it's not about being afraid of the water, it's about knowing what to do when you're in the water. So I would advise the parent, maybe try to get some swimming classes yourself, and in the absence of that, if you're not ready yet, just do some Google searches or even on YouTube and find out, how can I help my child to be safe in the water even though I am afraid of the water.
Mhm.
So you can pass on some little tips and so on to your child. But yes, as adults, we know the risks, and I do understand that the children, sometimes they are completely oblivious and we want to protect them. We definitely have a right, and our duty is to protect them. But mommy has to deal with that phobia because sometimes it's unfounded, and then it's difficult now for us to teach the child because they have unfounded fears because of what their parents have passed on.
Yeah, definitely. The transference of fear is really real, and children, I think, I don't have the precise figures on this, but the younger the child, the more fearless the child is. Fear starts to develop at a certain age, so you'd see children doing some really little children, toddlers even, doing things because they have no concept of fear.
Definitely.
And then that fear starts to develop as we get older. So I can really see the transference of fear. It happens for other things too, not just for swimming.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, when parents are afraid of a certain thing, they end up transferring that to the child. But talking about children, and you mentioning the parent can get swimming classes herself. Sometimes people feel like, I'm too old to learn to swim, or there might be another concept that it's too young for a child to learn to swim. What is the age range, in which swimming can be taught? What is the youngest age?
Okay, so for formal swimming classes, we recommend, well, not just we, but it is recommended that children start at the age of 4. And at that age, you figure that they are more emotionally ready, they're more mature in terms of their coordination and development. For formal classes, age 4 is just about the age that children can start learning to swim. However, a big however, not every 4-year-old develops this. Well, people don't develop at the same rate. So you may have one 4-year-old who is really comfortable in the water, because comfort level is a big thing. Your comfort level in the water will determine how quickly we move with you in terms of learning to swim. When we have children who come in and they're comfortable, they are not afraid of the water, they put their face in a week, parents will tell you, wow, they are seeing such vast improvements. But when you have children same age, but they're scared of the water, or let's say they're just not mature enough, so it's difficult for them to pay attention, then you may take a little bit longer with that child. But age 4 is the recommended age
to begin.
Yes. From age 1 to 3, it is recommended that children can learn survival skills.
Okay.
So survival skills, what to do, how to float, and how to save themselves if they fall in water. Because at that age, you cannot really teach the children the different strokes,
the different styles.
Yes, different swimming strokes. You don't teach that. But what you can do is teach them how to survive in water, if they fall in the water, if they go in the water. So they call it the survival skills. But the American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, they recommend that below the age of 1, children should not be learning to swim at below the age of 1.
Okay.
And people are hearing about infant swimming and so on, and all of this is a big thing, and we see it. I see it on the internet, and it's something I'm actually looking into as well. But at the stage of infant, some children cannot hold their heads up. You understand? So you have a lot of things to mitigate against teaching an infant to swim. But from 1 to 3, you can teach them survival techniques, water survival techniques, and from the age of 4, they can start formal swim classes.
Okay, and I think that is critical information. 1 to 3, survival techniques or skills in the water, and from 4 you could learn proper swimming style. And the survival, I have seen, like I think we have a mutual friend, yes, and I saw the swim, well, I guess it's not swimming classes, but survival in water classes, and I saw at the very end that the child was pushed into the water fully clothed. I think the child is about 2.
I think she might be about 2 for the most.
Yes, pushed into the water, fully clothed, and was able to pass the class, to flip over on her back and survive that, being put in the water. So is that something that is taught here, or is it something that maybe is on the horizon in terms of giving little ones that basic survival skill?
If anybody else is teaching it, I'm not aware, so I don't want to say it's not being taught here.
Mhm.
But for sure, at our academy, we do not teach it, but it's something we have been looking into.
Mhm.
And even more so now, I've actually reached out to 2 organizations already in the States to get the training for that. And so it's something hopefully that we should be able to offer very soon.
Okay.
Because from the videos that we saw from our same friend that she posted on Facebook,
Mhm.
her daughter wasn't doing any swim strokes.
Mhm.
But what she definitely was doing is that she knew she was being taught how to flip on her back, because it's very important. That's something we teach at our academy. So when we teach our students how to tread water, and treading water is what you call basically knowing when somebody says I can swim, they can tread water.
Mhm.
It means that they know how to stay up in the deep.
Stay up. Okay.
Okay, so treading water basically is pushing down on the water with your hands and your feet. And when you push down on that water with the principle of action, reaction, you push down on the water and the water pushes back up against you. So you get an up thrust, and that's what keeps you up. So you keep on doing it and you're kept up, but it's very tiring. So we teach our students to float when they get tired after treading. To float is very important because that's how you rest in the water.
Mhm.
We teach our students what to do if there's nowhere to grab onto or hold onto. Okay, so you float, you catch your breath, then when you feel like you've rested enough, then you swim again,
Mhm.
and those kind of things that we teach. However, with the little ones and the training, the swimming, the survival skills for ages 1 to 3, it's definitely something we are looking into, and hopefully it should be on the horizon
Soon.
Yes.
What about the too old to swim?
No, there's no too old to swim.
There's
There's
no
no
too
too old to swim.
To learn.
To learn to swim,
Mhm.
sorry. Except if the person has some real disability that would definitely prevent them from holding themselves up in the water,
Mhm.
something like that. But once somebody can hold themselves up in the water, once somebody can move their arms and legs to keep them, and even that, we've taught students who have disabilities where they may not have the full use of their other arm,
Mhm.
but they're swimming and they're
Mm.
swimming very well.
Okay.
So if your child has that sort of issue, don't just knock it off and say, oh, he or she cannot learn to swim.
Mhm.
Okay, but you are never too old to learn to swim.
Right. And I think that is something that is important to say, because I remember, as I said, I learned just recently, and people were like, "Oh, big old hat back like you is now you're learning to swim." You know what I
Seriously?
mean? Yeah, because people do like people who I guess learned as young children, they find it crazy if you try to learn as an adult.
No.
But honestly, I had no shame
And as you should not.
in
Yeah.
trying to learn to swim as an adult, because I felt it was something, as I said, doctors had been recommending that I, do it as exercise and so on. And I felt that it was important to just take that leap of faith and try it. And the survival skills that you mentioned, like for 1 to 3 year olds, I think that was maybe my most important outcome of the swimming classes that I took. I took two 6-week classes.
Okay.
Because before I would be panicking, because I would feel like if I was just immersed in water, I would not know what to do. And now I know for sure I can float.
Yes.
And it's something that, as a big person, a plus size person, somehow I felt that, floating was not going to be something I could do.
That is the loveliest thing.
And
isn't it?
now I know that I can float easily,
Yes.
too easily, as a matter of fact. And there's nothing preventing me from keeping myself up in water if I am just, immersed in water.
Yeah.
And Shamini, that brings me to another question. A lot of people, as it relates to learning to swim, they'll say, why take classes? I learned to swim by just being thrown in the water. I was out with my brother, my sister, and they just threw me in, and I just did away myself, and I started swimming, and and people feel like this is the ideal way to bring about the skill of swimming. What is your take?
I completely disagree with that. I don't think anybody should learn to swim or be thrown into the water, and that's a traumatic experience. I mean, you're going to traumatize somebody, and even though some of us learned to swim that way, we were scared.
Mm-hmm.
And not because we got over our fear, we figure that this is the right way. This is not the right way to teach somebody to swim. If you're a parent and you feel like you cannot, you don't want to do swimming classes, or you cannot afford swimming classes, or they're not available, but you know how to swim, then you teach your child to swim. You start with the floating on the back, what to do when your face is in the water, blowing the bubbles out through their nose or through their mouth, whichever is more comfortable for them. Ensure that they know when their face is in the water, they don't take any water in. So you show them when your face is out of the water, or you blow out, or you blow out for your nose or your mouth, and then they do that same thing with their faces in. But throwing someone in the water, definitely it traumatizes the person, and some people still never get to learn how to swim doing that, and now they're traumatized for life and they don't want to learn to swim.
Yeah.
So no.
Yeah, but it's a very, very common practice. I mean, I think maybe 3/4 of the people who I know would say that that happened to them, in their life, that they were just thrown in, they were pushed in, and basically they had to just
They had to
figure
deal
it
with
out.
themselves,
Yes, they had to figure it out. But it's modern times. I think people should really, forget that
Yes, that was the
old
old school way.
approach.
That was the old
Yeah.
school way, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous because I mean, it could definitely be a very tragic outcome, and I'm sure there have been tragic outcomes with persons who've been pushed in the water and been I'm teaching you to swim.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely not the go-to.
Mm-hmm. I think somebody like me, if that had ever happened to me, it never did. But I think if that had ever happened to me, I would drown right away, because it's like, even when I started to learn as an adult, I had so much fear and so
Yeah.
many things to overcome, much less if I had been pushed in.
Mhm.
I think I would have just, given up right there and then. Trust me,
Definitely.
I do not think I would have been the one with any kind of positive outcome on that. Let us take a short break, and we will be back. Of course, we're discussing safety in the water and what to expect and experience from swimming and learning to swim. We're here with Shamini Walsh Dupie, who is a swim instructor. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with you.
Oh, and if they say convenience could make a big difference, then you can trust me. I know just where you should be. And that is JP Mega, 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 Mega. The one-stop shopping Dominica, nigga. You could be shopping and having fun with your daughter or with your son. We cater to everyone. What a happy place, happy place. Oh, JP Mega, 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 Mega. The one-stop shopping Dominica, nigga. You could be shopping and having fun. Bring Papa and Mama along. We cater to everyone. What a happy place, happy place. Oh, what a happy place. Purchase 6 or more of any item and you automatically qualify for a discount. Check us out at the Mega Store in Funkole, where there's lots of parking on Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. On Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. JP Mega, the best family shopping experience.
I woke up this morning feeling real stink. I had intentions to call in sick, but I end up in Jolly's Pharmacy. Great and down King George Street, Jolly's fix up my immune system. Got me feeling fit and strong, now I'm ready to work and pick on any mission. If you see me walking, Jolly's Pharmacy is number one, Jolly's walking. We cater for everyone, Jolly's walking. Boost up the immune system, Jolly's walking. Yo, Dominic is the white father box. Whenever I'm in town and I'm feeling down, I head to Jolly's Pharmacy. They boost me up real quick. Jolly's Pharmacy, leading the way in healthcare.
Who say health cannot have vibes? Well, Jolly's Pharmacy is proving you otherwise. With Health Vibes, every Wednesday morning on Q95 from 10 a.m. to 11:30. Health Vibes, education, information, and a bit of humor. And not forgetting lots of vibes. Hosted by Carlton Langdo with co-hosts Jacinta Fagan Defo and Trudy Kristen. Jolly's Pharmacy is bringing health and vibes together every Wednesday, so be sure to tune in. Health Vibes every Wednesday on Q95 from 10 a.m. to 11:30. Jolly's Pharmacy, leading the way in healthcare.
And we are back with you. Of course, we are here. It is Jolly's Health Vibes, and we are here discussing, safety protocols for water, swimming, and engaging in water activity, recreational and otherwise. And Shamini, our swim instructor, who is with us this morning, we've discussed several aspects of safety as it relates to, going into the water. I want to ask you about what ideally should be the measures in place for any body of water that people are using recreationally, pool or a popular beach. What should be the safety protocols, or what exists elsewhere in terms of safety for these bodies of water that are commonly used recreationally?
Okay, well, ideally, you definitely want to have lifeguards.
Mhm.
So, whether it's a party you're having at a pool, or whether it's just to come to a pool to swim, or to even to a beach, like say Mero or something, I think it's important to have lifeguards that are patrolling the area, that are helping you as a parent supervise the children, or just not the children, because anybody can drown, but basically just supervising the persons in the water. And that is something that we don't have in Dominica. It's not the protocol, so to speak, here, but it's something that we definitely need to look into and to do better as it relates to having these areas supervised with lifeguards, because these people are certified, they're trained to deal with persons in distress. And it's something our association is also looking into. The Dominica Amateur Swimming Association, we're hoping to launch a water safety program. Actually, it's something that we are still working on. And this summer, for example, I'm actually going to do a lifeguard training course. And that's one of the ways I want to qualify myself to better help.
Okay, so what about, and we often hear, anytime there's an incident, that's when we start hearing about, there should be lifeguards at this beach, or, this is a popular area, there should be lifeguards. Now, in the absence of that, are there any other things, maybe even in terms of signage, that could, assist with ensuring better safety at our popular, water areas or recreational areas?
Yes, so I meant to mention that as well. So in the absence of that, definitely there should be signs up, letting people know, for example, the depth of the water, letting people know if there's anything unusual that occurs, for example, a tide coming in, any rip currents.
Yes.
If it's in a pool, what they should or should not do based on experience, based on the dimensions of the pool, and all of these things are important for persons to note. So signage, I think, is something else that we don't really have in Dominica per se. Maybe by a pool you might see, a sign saying swim at your own risk, or don't dive, or whatever it is. But for example, if an area is known for a particular phenomena or something, I definitely think there should be signage in that area warning persons, so they can take heed and they can be more careful when they engage in any activity in the water.
Right. I think even in terms of just general road signs, sometimes we just take it for granted that people know because it's Dominica, everybody's supposed to know, but we have a lot of visitors, we have foreigners, and there are particular water sources or water areas that have very specific threats or peculiarities. You mentioned rip currents.
Yes. I can mention from an experience we had at we went to Titu Gorge. I was a lot younger, maybe in my early 20s. I seem like I'm so old, but I was younger for sure. And if you've been to Titu Gorge, you have to tread water, which is the same thing I was mentioning. If you, in the absence of a life jacket, you have to tread. Well, even with a life jacket, you have to tread that water until you get to a spot where you can stand. And for somebody who's not an experienced swimmer, it's quite a long tread. So I remember we went some years ago, and there was this man, and he was just coming out. We had already returned, and he seemed like he was in a lot of distress. And the person I was with at the time was older, and he went to help him, and he did seem kind of embarrassed. because he was in distress, but he wasn't saying anything. And that's the
Okay.
thing. Sometimes you're not sure what distress. Distress is not always somebody flaying their hands and screaming help.
Mhm.
Someone might be in distress and they might be too embarrassed to even, or even too shocked sometimes.
Mhm.
And you're not sure that the person needs help.
Mhm.
So even these areas like Titu Gorge, and even if you're kayaking or canoeing, or you figure I'm on a boat, I'm fine. Anything can happen.
Mhm.
Even if you're kayaking, you're on a boat trip, there should be life jackets available for persons.
Mhm.
And in areas where people swim recreationally, there should be other life-saving devices like the rings,
Right.
or we call a tube, and any other flotation device that you can use to save a life.
Definitely, I think that is something we maybe not maybe we should be investing a bit more in. The signage for sure, warning visitors and locals alike
Yeah.
of any sort of danger of or peculiarity of a certain body of water, and also the life-saving devices that can be stored maybe somewhere. The same way that now we're going into, and it's very nice to see, but we're going into like for popular beaches, being able to have the umbrellas and the
chairs,
long
yeah,
chairs,
yeah.
right, for people to, sometimes you can pay to rent one and so on. I think, you know, the communities in which these popular swimming areas or recreational water areas are can also be empowered in terms of having a storage area for these flotation devices.
Definitely.
If somebody is in distress, at least somebody can, you know, throw out one or go and, you know, so that person can have a better chance.
Yes.
So I think, you know, this is something every time we have certain discussions, things come up, things of course that can happen and can be done better. And, you know, somebody might listen and might be like, oh, let me pick up this particular cause. I think that's a good idea.
Definitely.
Signage, I am a big one for signage because something else about me, I get lost very easily. And people will be like, you know, just go so. I remember I always used to get lost, not lost, but make a mistake around the roundabout in Pokase. So it's like I would take the wrong road. And until I don't think it's that long ago, that many years ago, there are signs now, you know, Roseau, airport,
yeah.
whatever. So like, you know, you can say I'm
This
on
is
the
the way.
correct
Yeah.
road after the roundabout. But before it was like,
It's not our culture.
yeah, you're just
we're not a
supposed to
culture of
just know,
signage,
you're
yeah.
supposed to know what to do. So I really, you know, want to call for better signage or more signage, and maybe some, you know, installation of some life-saving devices or storage of that at our popular recreational water areas. But Shamini, something you mentioned is people or observing somebody in distress, like the man you saw at Titu Gorge.
Yeah.
What should happen if you are out and you observe somebody is in distress? And I want to ask that question on two fronts. One, if you can swim, and one, if you cannot swim and you observe somebody in distress. What should be happening, or what should be ideally done?
What is recommended, and what even if you're a swimmer or not, they recommend that you throw something to the person, something that they can obviously hold on to, something that floats. You reach for the person if you are on stable ground and they are close enough for you to reach them, or you can actually put something out that they can reach and you hold it. But they don't recommend that you go and just save a life and figure I can swim. Many a person have lost their lives trying to save somebody else. And I remember we did a life training course when I probably was about 14 years old. And one of the things they told us is that if somebody is drowning and you come to save them, when someone is drowning, they are in full panic. Because one of the worst things is drowning water is in your mouth and you cannot breathe, and you just, you know, you see your death basically. And that person will do anything that they have to do to save themselves, including climbing on top of you, including pushing you under the water so that they can reach out of the water. Not that they want to do anything to harm you, but they are in such a state of panic. They're not thinking right. And then you thinking that you went to help somebody end up putting yourself in more danger than anything else. So we were taught that if it gets to the point where the person, it's your life or their life, do whatever you have to do to get them off you. Because at this point, you have to save your life. So that's why they recommend don't go. even if you're experienced swimmers have drowned trying to save somebody else. The people who should go out and save people are people who are trained to save people. So that is very, very important. But if you see somebody in distress and you can reach them, okay, they ask that you reach your hand out to them. If it's your hand that you can reach, you make sure you are on stable ground. You brace yourself, so you squat a little and you lean back to pull them. But make sure that you are stable. Okay. If there's a belt, you have a stick, you have a rope, and you can throw out to them and they can reach it and you can pull. But important again, make sure it's somewhere that you are safe, you can stand, and you would be able to pull them. And when we talk about throwing something, obviously it has to be something that can float, be it a beach ball, okay, be it a cooler, anything that can float that they can hold on to, you throw to them. And in the absence of all of these things, you definitely and always still, even with those things, you call for help. You call for help immediately.
So, and that is very, very interesting, because I can visualize in a scenario where the person who is in distress is your loved one.
Yeah.
And you are the only person there, or you're the only person around,
And you want to save
and you want to
course.
save that person. It's your child, it's your husband, it's your wife, having the clarity of thought to say, boy, I cannot go out to save them, or I cannot, I'm not on stable ground, I cannot send anything, and you just dive in yourself.
And definitely we understand that, because God knows, if it's my mother, if it's a family, if it's anybody, I already know my first instinct would be to go in and help. But I also remember, I also have the experience in the water. But still, even as a swim instructor and even as a swimmer, you never overestimate your abilities. Never overestimate your abilities, because you think you can, and then you realize that I really cannot. And anything can happen. If it's a situation where the person is really wildly
flashing in the water,
that is when it might be more difficult.
Yeah.
If the person is more calm, and maybe you can if you can reach them, they're not very far, and you can float on your back and you can pull them to shore or whatever it is. But these things, you have to be qualified, you have to be trained, and I will stress it. I'm not telling anybody to go out and save anyone, and you're not trained to save people. People have done it and they've been okay. It might have been in shallow enough water. It's a child, it's in shallow enough water. You can get in there and you can stand. If you can stand, it's okay. But if it's far out and you cannot stand and you have to tread to get to them, meaning there's nothing to put your foot on, that's when it becomes more dangerous.
Right.
But if it's somebody who's just there in the shallow water, because guess what? They said you can drown in what? In about
in a few
little
amount of water, yeah.
You can't even drown in that. Okay, so we cannot just say, oh well, it's just there and it's an adult. People can find themselves in panic situations, or it could be a medical emergency.
Right.
It could be the person can't swim, but the person had a medical emergency and the person needs help. But if it's shallow water and you can stand and you can do it, fine. But if it's out, if it's deeper and you're not sure, especially if you're not sure, you don't feel confident, and even if you do feel confident, remember there are repercussions to putting yourself in that situation. It can be very dangerous.
And yeah, you mentioned a medical emergency. I know we've had a drowning of somebody who maybe had a stroke or heart attack or something. The person essentially lost consciousness in the water. In a situation like that, Shamini, somebody's in water and they lose consciousness. Do they pose a threat to pulling them on shore? Like if you are able to reach them?
I think if you're able to reach them, definitely, I don't think that poses a threat, because number one, you need to get the person's face out of that water.
Okay.
And if the person is not moving or so on, and you can reach the person, and you definitely the person needs saving at that point. And at which point in time, if you do not know CPR or any of that, then you need to call help immediately. But definitely someone who is not moving in the water, somebody who is not, in a panic state, it's definitely might be an easier save. And then remember, the person feels lighter in the water as well. And then if you can get someone to help you, then, but still, even that, you ask somebody to assist you and then you put somebody else in danger. So it's just a lot to think about.
Right. But if somebody is unconscious, do they float? Or do they? That is another thing I'm wondering. Does the person stay buoyant if they have, stopped breathing? Or I've never experienced it, but I wonder in those scenarios, does the person start to go down?
That I have not experienced it myself either, and I don't want to just outright
Say
yes
something.
or no. I'm thinking they would float,
Okay.
unless they have something really, really dense or that would pull them under the water, or it's just a current or it pulls them away. But I think for the most part you should see the person, but I don't want to
say for
yeah,
sure.
I don't wanna
Okay.
give-
I get you. But yeah, I think all these are important, factors to consider. And as I said earlier, it is a period of time where a lot of people will be engaging in, recreational use of water, the summer months, and particularly it being so hot. People, want to go out in their free time and, take a bath somewhere in a river, in a pool, at the beach. So all these things that you are saying and giving people to consider are particularly useful at this time.
Yes.
So yeah, I really hope that people pay attention, because it's funny, sometimes we are on this show and it has happened a lot in the past, and we discuss a particular thing, and then lo and behold, in quick time it becomes a reality for someone who was listening to the show.
That is true.
Yeah.
And just to mention as well, people who are planning to go to the beach and to the pools and to the rivers this summer, even in the sun, we say, oh, we're black people, we're dark skinned, we should be fine. But wearing sunscreen and protecting yourself against the UV rays is important as well. Wearing and also keeping yourself hydrated, because even if you're in water, you can also become dehydrated. So it's good to also keep yourself hydrated in the water. I'm obviously, you don't want to drink too much water to the point where you feel uncomfortable, but definitely it's okay to drink some water while you're on the beach. And the children in the pools and so on, let them know it's dangerous to swallow the water in the pool, because a lot of children too, they just figure they just open their mouth, they swallow the pool water, the sea water, the river water. We just figure it's water, but we know obviously water have impurities and so on, and that is another way that needed to be safe. And I want to just stress again the importance of making sure that you always have a swim buddy with you, and supervising. Even though your child can swim, even though someone can swim, it's these traumatic events can happen to even the most attentive parents, and we want to put that out there as well. Drowning can happen so quickly. You can be the most attentive parent and it can happen to you. It doesn't mean that someone is inattentive or neglectful if something happens, but it just tells us more that we have to supervise our children, because they are quick little ones and they love water, a lot of them. And especially, as I mentioned before, having toys near the pool or near the beach, to the edge of the water's edge, and they see it, they go, and they're curious, and they have no fear because they figure it's fine, and they find themselves in danger. So it's important for us to supervise and educate our children on what can happen if water goes in your nose, in your mouth, if you open your mouth under the water. Okay, and if when these things do happen to them, use it as a teachable moment. You see what happened when your mouth was open? Okay, so that's why you close your mouth, you blow your bubbles, you blow out in that water, you don't pull anything in.
So definitely, take heed and use the information that you have to make the best decisions that you can as it relates to water safety and being around water and having children around water as well. So just take these precautionary measures in mind, keep them in mind. Shamini, as we close, we approaching the end of our time. I want you to just tell our listeners once again, where you teach, where you swimming classes, that is, what is the availability of swimming classes, how long does it take, we have not mentioned that. How long does it take, for a swim class, or what are the different lengths of classes that you would offer if you just want to learn to survive in the water like I did, or if you want to learn the different strokes. What is the expectation of time for that? So I want you to tell our listeners that input, because I know people might be listening and, oh, this summer or very soon I want to get my child, or I want to take a swimming class.
Okay, so we're Swim for Life Academy, and we operate out of Anchorage Hotel. We use the pool at Anchorage Hotel. Right now, we have children from the ages of 4 to 17. That is children that we take and teach them to swim. It's a learn to swim program. And our aim is to have a competitive group, as I mentioned before, that can compete and represent Dominica in swimming. We also have some other clubs around the island. So this one is in the Roseau area. There's a club in the Portsmouth area as well. Sorry, not Portsmouth, Marigot area. I think there's one also at the beach in Rockaway. So we have Jason Robin doing one in Marigot as well, and they have also John Robin who does swimming as well. So this is not the only swim club, but this one, Swim for Life, we're in the Roseau area. People always ask that question: how long does it take to learn to swim? I will say, and as I always tell persons, there's no set time. Some people tell you, oh, here 6 weeks and you learn to swim. I do not give that promise, because every person is different. And for being an instructor for so many years, I have persons who come and in one day, the progress they've made in a day, it's phenomenal. And then there are persons that I have for 3 weeks going, and I'm now getting them to put their faces in the water. So how long you take to swim is based on your comfort level. It's based on your and comfort is the main thing. Comforting is the main thing. The person has to be very comfortable in the water, and any instructor will tell you someone who's comfortable in the water, it's a breeze teaching them to swim, and obviously have some sort of ability, and coordination is important as well. But if you just want to learn how to survive in the water, we definitely can offer that. If you just want, like Trudy, you want to learn how to float, if you're in the water, what can you do? What can you teach your children to do? Then definitely that's something that we definitely can do. For this summer, we're having classes for this July, but it's usually we go with the school year. So when school term ends, if it's Easter, we take a break. If it's Christmas, we take a break, and so on. But because we've been on a short hiatus for 2 months, we're having classes for the month of July. We usually go with the regular group that we have right now, but we don't know who might be traveling and so on. We may have a few spots available.
Okay.
Besides that, we have instructors that may be available for private classes for adults, or if you want your child to do one-on-one training, we have swim instructors that may be available for that. I wouldn't be available for July. I wouldn't be on island. However, when I come back in August, definitely I can do some classes.
Classes.
But we're looking to reopen in September after our July program.
Okay. I also want to mention, and I'll make you give the contact details in a minute. I also want to mention Donna Mitchell, who teaches in the Portsmouth area normally, but there's a summer camp that she is a part of, Discover Aqua, and this one is in July 17th to the 28th, and it's for children 7 to 17 years old. So if you are interested in that will be on the Purple Turtle Beach from July 17th to 28th. Children 7 to 17, teaching them to swim, snorkeling, scuba diving, sightseeing. So there's a camp if you're in the north.
Nice.
For children in that area. It's I think an easy access for people in the north, and the contact details for that camp is 265-6160. So if you want to engage your child age 7 to 17 in swimming class for the summer, July 17th to the 28th, you can do so. And Shamini, give us your contact information for when you said maybe in August you will be available, and maybe in September as well. So if they want to contact you or Nikesa.
Yes.
Yes. What is the contact?
So my contact is 245-9420 and Nikesa is 276-7212. So that's 245-9420 and 276-7212. Just want to let any parents know who are in the Rosa area or who can access our swim club and they are interested. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is safety at Swim for Life Academy. So we do have a limit on the number of children we take because we do not want, it's more important to us that our children are safe than we have a lot of children in our swimming classes, because based on the age group recommended, you have different number of swimmers per instructor. And even with that, you may have sometimes you have one child who needs a lot of attention, and therefore if an instructor was able to have 5 swimmers, now we can only have 3 swimmers because we have one who needs a lot more attention. And we definitely want to make sure that all our children are properly supervised. So space is definitely limited.
Okay.
But you can reach us and you can get more information from us.
Nice. Okay, so I hope maybe somebody somewhere is inspired to take that plunge and learn to swim. I am looking at the producer of the show, but anyway, if we've inspired anybody to learn to swim this summer or in the future, that's good. That was the intended outcome. So do have a good rest of the day. Shamini, thank you so much for joining us here on Health Vibes.
You're welcome.
We will be back next week. Hopefully our chief host, Mr. Lando, will be back with us on air next week on Health Vibes. I'd like to wish all our listeners a very enjoyable day and the rest of the week, and make sure you are back with us next week, Wednesday, same time, same place, right here on Q95 FM radio. We will see you next week. Goodbye.